Hi, welcome to Cyberlab. In this episode, we're going to look at a really smart, malicious captcha method that, while you think you're trying to prove you're human, it is intending to download and install a malicious program to your machine. We'll start off by looking at a brief history of captchas, what they are, why we use them, and then we'll look at an actual example of this. So let's get into it. Okay, so going to start with, I guess, an example of something that we're all used to seeing. As you can see, login page for Try Hack Me here. And this is a very typical Google-based captcha. So I'm going to click I'm not a robot. We're now presented with select all images with bridges. So we attempt to click ones that we think look like bridges. Hopefully I get this right. And there we go. Simple, right? Proven I'm not a robot. And now I can log into the website. And anyone who's used a login will have seen this. Yeah, you'll see this quite a lot with banking, with shops, with all kinds of websites. Okay, so what I've pulled up on screen is a text-based captcha. Now, this is very similar to some of the very earliest captcha methods, and they were first started in the 90s, early internet days, and bots were starting to be used for malicious, unwanted, even trolling. And so websites, hosts for websites needed a way of being able to deny access to these unwanted visitors. And so researchers at the IT company Sanctum, in 97 actually, came up with the first initial sort of captcha method. And then in 2003, the actual term captcha was created by researchers at Carnegie Mellon University. I'm going to make sure I get their names right. Louis von Ahn and Manuel Bloom. So sorry if I didn't quite pronounce those right. But these are the guys that came up with the name. And what it does stand for is a completely automated public Turing test to tell computers and humans apart. So yeah, man, captchas is way easier to say. All right, so a few more bits of history on it. As you can see, we have a text-based one here, and that was good for sort of early internet. Next, I'm showing an example of something that we are much more used to seeing now, and these are sort of visual image-based ones. This particular one has been developed by Google, and they've been heavily involved in this since about 2014, and they've been sort of doing the reCAPTCHA version 1, version 2, version 3, and there's many methods that they use. Sometimes you have to click several boxes and they stay ticked, and then you hit next. Sometimes you might click a box and it disappears and another image comes up. Sometimes you might just click I'm a robot and you can see the wheel spinning in the while it's doing something, and then it says you're not a robot. In that particular instance, it's most likely a V3 reCAPTCHA, and that's where it looks at your behavior. You don't actually have to specifically do anything at that time, but it looks at browsing history, it looks at mouse movement and a few other things. And so it gives you a rating from 0 to 1. 0 being, just make sure I get this correctly, 0 being likely a bot, and 1 being that you're likely human. All right, there you go. There's an example of the result you want, which is that you're not a bot. And here's an example of a different one, which is a different type of puzzle this time. And you'd click the slider, move the puzzle piece to the gap, and the time it takes you to do that, and the sort of the way you move the mouse is how that particular one determines whether you are a bot or whether you're not. And here's another example of one where you would click the arrows to rotate the image until it's upright. There are other ones which are similar to this, and there might be several images, and you have to rotate this to match the one that it looks like, even with the sort of the orientation of it as well. But long story short, it's a small puzzle that is easy for a human to do. complete, and it's more difficult for a bot to complete, and which is actually quite unusual in cybersecurity, because most of the security, sort of the technical security aspects, are harder for humans and much easier for machines to do. For example, passwords. Like for us to remember a complex password that is difficult for a machine to break, with brute forcing, it's really hard for us to remember a strong password. I mean, there are things like passphrases and the diceware list, but most people resort to a familiar name, a date, dates of birth, pet names, even, still to this day, like password 123 is like one of the top 10 passwords used. And so, humans find it much more difficult to do certain things in cybersecurity, and machines tend to find certain tasks much easier. But this is a really good example of where that's been flipped around, and we find it simple to complete, but machines find it much more difficult. And so this is a good way of making sure that the entity visiting your site is a human. Okay, so we've looked at some bit of history, a few examples of a CAPTCHA. Let's look at an actual example I saw at work, and what we have here is a screenshot that I've taken of the initial part of this CAPTCHA. As you can see, it looks, if you're just looking at it briefly, it looks very similar. Like the overall shape of the pop-up where it says complete verification steps looks very similar to the normal Google, the normal Google reCAPTCHA pop-up, right? It's got the similar color, similar shape, similar overall size. And so if you've done any number of different CAPTCHAs over the last few months, you're very used to seeing, one, different methods, two, you're very used to just following the instructions. And so something like this is quite smart, because it gets into that automatic process that we have, where we trust that it's right because we've done it many times before. And so it kind of becomes a subconscious thing where you go, okay, well, I've got to click this, click that, type this, just follow the instructions, right? But in this case, let's look at the instructions. It says, to better prove you're not a robot, please, 1, press and hold the Windows and the R key. Now what that does is, which is where we took the screenshot, or I took the screenshot, is it opens up the run prompt. And that's immediately this. If you ever see this should be a warning sign for you to just completely stop what you're doing at this point, because never should you ever have to run anything, run any kind of command on your computer, because this run prompt is for Windows itself, and so now you're running a command of some type on your computer. This isn't just based in the browser. This isn't just you proving that you're a robot. You're going to run something on your PC. And the second command says, in the verification window, press Control-V, which is essentially paste. So there is a small script, just a one-liner, that you can see that, actually, this is when I took the screenshot, sorry, after doing step 2, which is to paste this command into the run prompt. And as you can see, it says MSHTA, which stands for Microsoft HTML Applications. And anyone who's worked in sort of IT or cybersecurity, or even just anyone who's interested in computers to the point where you'd encounter this, like it's again, this is the second red flag, apart from some of the slight differences to the CAPTCHA itself, but most of the time you'd look at that and go, oh, yeah, whatever, it looks right. But this, number 2, big red flag, running MSHTA, is, if you do a Google search on that, you will see a lot of hits for sort of it being used maliciously, because it essentially just runs a command using HTML, and so you can go to a website and do something on that website. And that's exactly what this one here is trying to do. You can see that there's a URL, hypertext link, HTTPS. You have the address and the domain. And you can see that the domain is .ru, which signifies Russia, which is, in most cases, that's going to be a red flag number 3. There are certain countries where a lot of this malicious behavior comes from. And as you can tell, I'm based in Australia. So for us, there are countries that we consider more risky than others. You've got Russia, Ukraine, China, North Korea, etc. So they're red flag places, certainly at work, but also personally. Like if you see something like this, either at work yourself or at home, this is, red flag number 3. Okay, so let's say we've now done 1, we've done 2. Let's say when we hit enter, this is what happens next. And as you can see in this example, this is when I was testing it on our test device at work. And we run CrowdStrike Falcon sensor. And so that's blocked that behavior, because this is one of the, MSHTA is one of the things that we want to block. And so this didn't go any further, which was 2 good things. It's good to see that, our infrastructure is working, and good for the user that received the email with a link to this website. And that's something really important as well that I didn't mention earlier on, is that this was a legitimate website that had been, I guess, I don't want to use the word attacked, but it's a legitimate site for a legitimate business that would, based on their industry, would get quite a lot of traffic. And this malicious captcha had been placed essentially on their website. So whoever got onto there means that the website itself had been compromised. And so that's the word I was thinking of, not attacked, compromised. So the website's been compromised. There's a malicious captcha put in place. It's not a malicious website. It is a legitimate company that is, has its own branding and reputation, etc. And so this is another reason why it's worth getting in front of these things. Obviously, we've got EDR here that handles this kind of thing, which is great to have defenses like that. But the better thing is knowledge. The better tool is knowledge. It is where it's like, well, look at this. This is absolutely something that we shouldn't be continuing with. We shouldn't be engaging in those instructions. But but people do, and it's not necessarily through any fault of their own. Like if you're under a lot of pressure and you're rushing and you're like, I just need to get this thing, etc. done. I've got to do whatever it is. You'll just go, okay, Windows this, that, 1, 2, 3, bang, and it happens to everyone at some point, right? And so this is the reason why I wanted to sort of do a video on it, because one, I think it's smart. It's a smart approach. It's well made, because this without the EDR it worked. It would have downloaded the malware onto my device, and it's. The impact isn't cool, but I think stuff like this, it's interesting to see. And this is one of the more, I guess, fun parts of the job, is getting to see interesting methods of attack like this, because obviously, we learn something more. We learn a new way to defend, or a new type of attack kind of thing. So yeah, this is very interesting. And so what I'll do is I'll show you some analysis of this website, and I'll switch over to, I've got an air-gapped laptop here that I use for this kind of stuff. Have one at work, but this is my one, and you can set this kind of thing up for relatively low sort of cost. A few $100s, you can get like a reasonably good ThinkPad, one that's certainly got enough processing power, install something like Ubuntu on it, and then you can run VMs with VirtualBox. This is connected through a cellular dongle, and so this doesn't touch my network. Obviously, this is home for me, but this isn't touching my network. This is a separate connection to the internet. It's a self-contained device, so if anything goes really haywire on it, I can just shut it off, and if if too much has happened on it, I can just reinstall Ubuntu and start again. And because it's hasn't cost me a lot, it's a really, really cool tool. So what I'll do is I'll switch to the other screen, and we can then take a look at. And let me switch to the other. Okay. Okay, so this is I'm running a Windows 11 VM on this air-gapped laptop. So let's switch over to these other controls. Alrighty, so as you can see, it's called Victim, really imaginatively named. But let's open up Brave browser, and then we'll also get this. So this is the URL. Now, what I would recommend, be careful with saving URLs like this on your machine. Like, if you're going to copy and paste this or sort of send it to anyone, or keep it for records on in text file or whatever, certainly do something like this. And off the top of my head, there is a name for this, and I can't remember what the name is for this process. But this is essentially we're making this particular. This can't be. If I copy and paste that into my browser, it won't run because it hasn't got the correct syntax for a URL. So certainly, if you're going to store it like this. Keep. At the end of the day, just account for human error. You don't know what's going to happen, and most of the problems that we see, most of the it's human error. It doesn't have to be a malicious act. People make mistakes, and in any security posture, humans are the biggest risk. Certainly once you get to a technical level, you have a good perimeter, you've got good technology, you've got good sort of infrastructure in place. Humans, we're the weakest link at this point. And so, okay, let's take a look at. So first of all, we're going to put it into VirusTotal. We'll get that one running, and then we're going to look at hybrid analysis as well. And so. Hybrid analysis is from CrowdStrike Falcon Sandbox by CrowdStrike. And now, look at this, another CAPTCHA. So we've got some steps here. Let's verify that. Excellent. Proved I'm human again, so that's good. Okay. So that's processing now. Let's take a look here. Interesting. Okay, so that's not as many red flags as when we looked at it originally. There you go. So it says 3 months ago. So this is probably. I don't want to assume, but this might be from us, because it was about 3 months ago that this happened. It was towards the end of. I'm pretty sure it was the end of October. In any case, it was towards the end of last year, and so this could well be. Might not even be us that did it, but this at the time when this was live, someone else could well have done this as well as us. But so this is something we can look at here. You get to see detections from numerous vendors. We got one hit for Kaspersky saying it's malware, so that was quite surprised it didn't get as many hits, to be honest. But let's see what this one comes up with. Oh, I probably should have clicked Windows 10. Okay, so that's a bit more exciting, isn't it? As we can see, it says malicious up at the top right. That's this top area. Analysis overview is essentially the summary of everything below it. AV results are sort of scanners and see what with this part here, the antivirus results part is very similar to this, where it's like security vendors have scanned it and got any flags. And then Falcon Sandbox. So this is where the URL is tested in Falcon Sandbox, and then this is the result that comes. So if we click on that, we can see what it says. Okay. So the main malicious indicator is that this domain was recently detected and commonly seen with phishing or other suspicious domains. Suspicious domains extracted during analysis. So these are the suspicious indicators. So not quite as serious as the full malicious indicators, but yeah, okay. Domain detected, input URL or contacted domain has been identified as suspicious. Yeah, so look, these are great tools. They're free. And so if anyone can just put a URL in, and so definitely I would recommend personally or at work, like if you get an email that you're not quite sure. I mean, obviously, if you're at work and you have a security team, the minute you suspect something, just send it through to them. That's absolutely best practice. But if you see something, you're browsing the internet at home, or you get an email, and you're like, it might be from a source that looks very similar to something that you're used to using, and so you might expect an email from them, but this one looks a bit sus. Then, if you've got a URL there or even a file, just plug it into this, and it'll give you some insights into what it is. And so this it doesn't mean you have to make your decision purely based on this, but if something has some hits like this, for example, then okay, I don't want to go to that website. And so it can help you make good decisions. And really, that kind of circles back to a point I made a bit earlier on in this video, which is you can have the best technical security setup in the world, but the best defense is knowledge and making good decisions. Because if you make a good decision and you don't go to this website, then there's no question you're not going to download or attempt to download that software. Whereas if you make a mistake or a poor choice and decide to navigate to that website, well, now you're going to attempt to download that malware, and now you're relying on the technical capabilities, which obviously we hope were good, but again, it's better to stop it before it starts rather than stop something that's already started. So, yeah, I think that's everything. So, look, I'd love to hear from you, and if you've seen something similar to this, or if you've seen a malicious capture method, or if you have any thoughts on what I've shown you here. Would love to. So comment. Would love to read them. So comment down below. Like and subscribe, the usual YouTube algorithm requests. And I think that's everything. Thank you.